What's up, guys? I'm Sci High, and I want to share something I overheard somebody say at a Friday Night Magic event one time that, for whatever reason, just really stuck with me. But there was a person that was really salty after a match loss, and they were going on and on about it's always the simplest crap that wins. And with this deck we're going to take a look at today, in some regards, I have to actually agree with them. So what are we talking about? I'm looking at a green Stompy or a green Beatdown deck today. And in its simplest forms, of course, green Stompy is a deck that's nothing new. It's an archetype that has existed in Magic's history since the beginning, really. It's one of the first archetypes to ever really even be in existence. But so it's very simple. You're just making big green efficient creatures and attacking and killing your opponent that way. But I feel like to be a successful aggro deck in a historic or a modern format, you've got to do something really special or extraordinary beyond just casting efficient creatures and attacking with them. And by something extraordinary, whether that's you also have a combo, or maybe you're a red aggro deck, and beyond just creatures, you also have a lot of burn as well that you can kill your opponent with beyond just creatures with a burn package. Or maybe you're more of a tempo aggro deck and you've got lots of taxing spells and interaction to mess with your opponent as well, kind of like a rogue's aggro deck, if you're familiar with like the rogue archetype. But this green version certainly is simple. We've got the simple, just basic beatdown creatures, but it also does other things that kind of put it over the top as a strong aggro deck, as opposed to just some crappy thing that can't actually go high on the ladder. But this is a deck that it's nothing really new. I think this was popularized by some players. I may have their pronunciation of their names wrong, but Defor and maybe Rumty on Twitter had shared these lists that they had piloted, I think in best of 3 to like top 50 mythic, or maybe even better than that. So it's intriguing for sure, and this deck definitely enjoyed some popularity over the last few weeks. But again, so what this deck has going for it beyond just big, dumb, fat creatures, it also it has great card draw in the Great Henge, Werewolf Pack Leader. So there's card advantage there. You also have instant speed threats, and of course the format All-Star Collected Company, where we can get 2 fat creatures at our opponent's end step, making it more difficult for control decks to sweep the board, because usually they have to do that at sorcery speed, of course. But in addition to that, the deck also can deal with graveyards in Scavenging Ooze. So there's a lot of graveyard decks or combo decks that rely on the graveyard that Scavenging Ooze can just disrupt. So that's also good there. And in addition, Scavenging Ooze, of course, can be really good even in decks that don't necessarily use the graveyard heavily, but maybe you have a really long attrition-based battle, and a lot of creatures fill up both graveyards, and I'm sure a lot of people have been in those games where Scavenging Ooze just kind of snowballs, gets totally out of control, and you can't deal with it. So this does a lot of work in this deck. But also in addition to drawing effects and instant speed threats, the deck has a little bit of resiliency towards sweeping effects, Wrath of God effects in Old Growth Troll, which can kind of come back in a unique way. So the deck does some interesting things beyond just being a stupid aggro deck. So we can dive in, take a look at these card choices. The deck that I built here, it's pretty straightforward. A lot of times when I'm building a new deck or looking to explore a new archetype, what I'll do is look at a lot of successful lists, and if it's a relatively new deck, maybe they haven't all converged on like the exact 60 cards to run or whatever. So I try to identify the most common cards in the archetype, the 4-ofs and cards that appear in almost all the lists, and stick to that as a shell. And then you can identify other slots and areas where maybe you have more room to explore. So I've gone with pretty basic, non-controversial shell here, but I have included at least one card that's maybe a little bit unorthodox. So we can talk about that right now. Then we'll just cover the rest of the card choices, and then we can let's go take this out on the ladder for a couple games and just see how it looks in actual gameplay. But So the card I'm talking about that's maybe a little bit strange, that I haven't tested a whole lot, full disclosure, but I figured a lot of the decks, there were no-brainers in you use 4 Llanowar Elves as your premier mana accelerant to help power out big, fat 3-drop creatures as early as turn 2 with help from Llanowar Elves, as well as Primal Might has been a 4 of in a lot of these lists. The great thing about Primal Might, in addition to just being able to have some spot removal for opposing creatures, the good thing about this is that it has gameplay and application even against decks that don't run creatures. Maybe you're up against a control deck, you don't even have a target. The good thing, at least about Primal Might, is it's not a dead card, because of course we can still use it to pump one of our creatures, get in for lethal that way. And you'll find as you play this deck more, it definitely fills that role a lot. But so getting to the card that's maybe a little bit exploration, kind of trial testing to see if this works, is Allosaurus Shepherd. I figured, why can't this work here as a 4 of? Obviously, this card is a staple, no-brainer in an Elves deck. So being that we're not an Elves deck, why have I decided to run this here? Well, I'll try to sell you on it, or at least explain my reasoning. Maybe it's flawed, but you can be the judge. Let me know in the comments what you think. But so Allosaurus Shepherd is, indisputably a very powerful Magic card. 1 green, 1/1. Interesting first sentence. It can't be countered, and then green spells you control can't be countered. So even right there, it's kind of interesting. I don't think it'd be good enough that we'd run it just with those stats, but that is very powerful and intriguing for sure, to instantly, easily make our entire deck can now no longer be countered. Collected companies that can't be countered are pretty scary indeed. So that's all great, having a deck that can't be countered. I mean, who likes having their spells countered? I certainly don't. That's annoying as hell. So it's got that going for it. But the last ability, I think, is actually really relevant here. Yeah, it's 6 mana. Until end of turn, each elf creature you control has base power toughness 5/5 and becomes a dinosaur in addition to its other creature types. Now, I'm sure we're all used to this in elves. Oftentimes, this being the way you lose, and having them make all of their elves have base power 5/5 is very powerful. But so, admittedly, it's certainly less powerful here, because we're only running the 4 Allosaurus Shepherds and the 4 Steel Leaf Champions, which it doesn't do anything with this because it's already has 5 power. But the fact of the matter is that you have a 1/1 that later in the game can quickly become a 5/5. Getting to 6 mana is pretty easy, especially considering we can cheat with Castle Garenbrig and do it as soon as we have 5 mana. We also have the Llanowar Elves as well, which is an elf. So Allosaurus Shepherd synergizes with itself. Obviously, the can't be countered layered effect is not going to stack, and we only have that one time. And the ability doesn't stack, but it does stack. The ability to pump or make the things 5/5 doesn't stack, but it does stack with the number of elves we have in play. So this now makes itself a much dangerous threat, as well as your Llanowar Elves, which later in the game cannot be quite as strong or really do much. They now become scary 5/5 threats, and you can swing in for lethal that way. Obviously, there's a ton of different 1-drop green creatures that are competing for this spot. Pelt Collector, another choice you'll see a lot in lists. Can't argue with that. That's another thing that's can slowly build up to become a 5/5 or 4/4, 3/3, whatever. But I just think that this is pretty interesting. This ability to buff your other Llanowar Elves, buff itself in a big way, and then instantly make your whole deck not be able to be countered is pretty sweet. So anyways, that's my reasoning. We're going to try it out here. We talked about Scavenging Ooze a little bit. Obviously, great application in attrition matches, gets snowballs out of control, gets larger, but also we can stop a lot of the combo shenanigans that rely on the graveyard. Wait till the last moment and exile whatever card they're trying to maybe reanimate. or they've got things in flashback that we need to proactively get rid of before they can flash them back. So Scavenging Ooze, not much to really explain there. This card's already proven itself in Magic's history. It's been an all-star in the modern format and other formats, so got 4 copies of it, of course. Another staple in this archetype, and a relatively new card, Werewolf Pack Leader, which of course has done a lot of damage in Standard over time, but 2 green, 3/3, Pack Tactics, helps us draw cards, also can pump to become a little bit bigger and get trample, can be relevant at times, but just another nice 2-drop as we curve out into the 3-drops. Once we get to the 3-drops, things get a little bit more interesting. Now we've got 4 Steel Leaf Champions, 3 green. Again, we're solid pure green, no problem casting this. Turn 2 at hopefully with Llanowar Elves, but just a 5/4 fatty, big fat creature, but can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Absolutely relevant for this card. Can't be chump blocked. You're not going to throw 1/1 tokens in front of this thing. This thing gets in for a lot of chunk damage for sure. Also along those lines, got Old Growth Troll, another 3 green, a little bit smaller this time, 4/4 trample, but it's got the awesome built-in resilient ability that when it dies, it enchants one of our forests and makes the forest be able to add more green or sacrifice the land to create another troll warrior. So kind of like he just comes back again. A lot of times, maybe after a sweeper, if you have the mana, you can, at your opponent's end step, reanimate this guy and at least get a 4/4 troll warrior back, ready to attack your opponent the next turn. And the reason why, you look at the mana base, we were heavy on forest saturation, in addition to the Castle Garenbrigs, to help power Allosaurus Shepherd's activated ability. But we're heavy on forest, of course, because we need basic actual forests to, or at least forest types, anyways, to enchant with the Old Growth Troll when he dies. So that's the reason for the high forest count. Also in the 3-drop, we've got 1 copy of Rhonas the Indomitable. This guy is just a bomb, death touch, indestructible. But it is a legendary creature, so we're only going to roll 1 copy here. And it's restricted from attacking or blocking unless we control another creature with power 4 or greater, which should be no problem in this deck. We've got tons of creatures with power 4 or greater, and even if they don't have power 4 or greater, we can use Rhonas' activated ability of 1 green, 2 to pump another creature +2/+0 and give it trample. Another totally irrelevant ability. And lastly, rounding out the 3 CC spot, we've got a couple of copies of just another really efficient, strong, fatty green creature back from Thrones of Eldraine, Lovestruck Beast, everybody's favorite beast. You've got Heart's Desire. This also can curve out on turn 1 to make a 1/1 white human creature. And then, of course, he can come back in beast form as a 5/5. Just another fat creature. Also, the restriction of must having a 1/1 creature to be able to attack with the Lovestruck Beast is supported by the Llanowar Elves, and as well as the Allosaurus Shepherds, which you can argue these help make Lovestruck Beast a little bit stronger, which is maybe a slight more reasoning for running this 1/1 over like a Pelt Collector, which gets larger and then potentially won't satisfy the restriction to attack with the Lovestruck Beast. I know, totally little marginal things to think about, but it's the kind of things you do have to think about when you're trying to craft an efficient deck. So that's Lovestruck Beast, just another efficient fatty. Finally, to the 4 CC spot, of course, we've got Coco or Collected Company, just format all-star. We're looking to cast it at end step, get a lot of fat creatures in play, and kill our opponent. And we've also got the last card in the deck. We've got 1 Great Henge. Just an awesome legendary artifact to help us gain life, draw more cards, and power stronger creatures out. It is legendary, and so we're just running 1 copy. We're very conservative with our legends in this deck. We're not going to ever be in a position where we have 2 Great Henges in the hand or 2 Rhonases. So we're always safe there, but they are so powerful that we're going to at least run 1 copy of them You know, the Great Henge can just overtake games if it's unchecked. You can draw way too many cards and really come back. So powerful, fun card for sure. But that's the deck. Pretty straightforward. So might as well dive into some games now. See what happens. The season has just started. Was lucky enough to qualify for top 1200 with Sage God combo. Check that out if you haven't watched that in my last video. It's a pretty sweet deck that I've built a little bit different way to be as efficient as possible. So the historic tournament is actually this Saturday already. Really not sure what I'm going to run yet. But we'll have to do a lot of testing this week and find out what we're looking to run. But looks like we're on the play, and looks like a okay hand, so we'll keep it. By the way, if you're not already subscribed, definitely please subscribe to my channel. I greatly appreciate it. We'll do lots of historic deck techs and mythic gameplay once we get back there, and definitely be looking to explore Kamigawa when it comes out. A lot of new brews and cards to look at for sure. A lot of powerful enchantments, so it should be fun. So definitely like and subscribe if you haven't already. I greatly appreciate it. But I have heard that, at least that this deck may not be as well suited for best of one. The theory behind that is that some believe there's a lot of just anti-creature decks in best of one. Our opponent looks to be on Azorius Auras, which in my limited time playing this, I think can be a pretty bad matchup actually, because if we can't kill, you know, a creature that gets too many modifications or buffs, or gets too large with lifelink, that'll be lights out for us. But we'll try it. We'll continue battling on, see what happens. So they've got an Adanto Vanguard, and they could always just pay the 4 life if we tried to kill that. Could consider just attacking into it if we want to try to... It's unlikely they'll block. I think I'll probably just attack into it and then just play a champion and say go at this point. There are much more dangerous creatures I would want to kill with Primal Might. Like a Core Spirit Dancer, if it just goes unchecked for too long. A couple enchantments on that would just kill us, but this could even kill us as well. This is certainly problematic. The lifelink is just pretty rough for this deck to deal with if we can't kill the creature. And, you know, they can pay 4 life to just prevent it from dying, so it doesn't seem too great. I think our best option is just to attack in, and I guess hold up Collected Company for their end step. Try to dig into some more creatures, some more fatties to try to beat them with, but Lifelink's going to be tough to beat here. I could have even considered main phasing the Collected Company if I'm worried they might have a Spell Pierce or something to counter it, but nothing I can do about that. It's going to get ugly fast. This one looks like it's history. So we can probably just quit this. Just curious if they counter this, but there's really nothing. I don't think anything will save us now. We have no way of killing this, and we're dead in the air. So we can go to next game. Yeah, I think Aura's stuff doesn't seem like a good matchup for this deck. Just because, speaking of like being an aggro deck doing extraordinary things, the Azorius Aura certainly does extraordinary things, and the pumping one creature so massively with lifelink, as well as just a lot of consistency, the ability to draw so many cards and find that combination is pretty strong. But it seems like that matchup is just kind of a lost cause if you can't kill their initial creatures. And because of some of their built-in ways of making their creatures indestructible, it just seems like an uphill battle. We'll give it another go. Another Lurrus. Hopefully that's not the same person. Didn't pay attention to the name, but we'll keep. So I guess I'm going to go Llanowar Elves first. To try to get a turn 2 Troll. It's likely they may just kill our Elves. Vortex. So, I guess I could block here and just see what they're planning on doing. At worst, I will, I'll be able to get the troll back, potentially. I'm just trying to draw out some of this stuff. Also, if creatures actually do die, I do have a Scavenging Ooze. Of course, the troll's going to come back. So I think maybe we go Ooze and then look to make a troll. Or we could just try to knock out their Soul Scar right now with a pumped Elves, but not sure how strong that is. Kind of like just getting the Ooze out now. Oh, I forgot the troll does come back tapped, which is unfortunate. Should probably be, pro tip, should probably be familiar with the cards that you're running. So they're static, just charging my Ooze. Nothing I can do, nothing I really want to remove. Just getting blown out. And I was planning on getting the troll back now, but since it comes back tapped, obviously it's not going to do any blocking, so we're just going to take 2 to the dome again. Alright, now I could again consider Primal Mighting, but I think it'd be just stronger to continue loading the board with fatties and stuff. So I think I'm gonna just they're tapped out. Let's get another champion out. Probably cast the Shepherd, though we are getting into a little bit of a race situation. We could consider attacking with it as well. But I like just being as efficient as possible here, I think. another pumped up Static Discharge this time. But I think they're pretty screwed with these mana woes they appear to be having. Might as well just use... Well, don't know what we're going to draw next time. Could just kill it now, attacking with everything. And they seem so screwed. A little bit unfortunate to get the -1/-1 counter there. Not very mindful of that, but it's too many fatties coming down. But there's a small taste of the green Stompy deck. Let me know what you guys think. Obviously, it's not a new thing at all, but curious what you think of the inclusion of the inclusion of the Allosaurus Shepherd. Like, does that actually have any play here? I feel like haven't tested this enough, but I feel like it can do things just when you have nothing else and just a sink for your mana to just make Llanowar Elves 5/5s as well as itself, and then just the clause of you can't counter anything in my deck seems pretty sick to me. But obviously you need some 1-drop here to help the curve, and there's a lot of interesting green creatures to choose from, so it's fun to explore and kind of test out different things. But anyways, guys, that's Green Stompy. I'm Sci-Hi. Let me know what you think of the deck. Like, subscribe, all that, blah, blah, blah. And we'll see you next time. And as always, good luck on the ladder. Peace, guys.